Are you tired of blowing out your back at the bathtub while washing your dog or subjecting your canine to a water torture bath while leashed up to a post outside? Now there's a far more effective way to wash your pet while saving your back and keeping your dog happy. It's called Booster Bath, a portable bathtub on legs. Head over to boosterbath.com, one word, and pick one up. Available in 3 sizes, this tub system features a drain, a soap cubby, and water-controlling wand. This tub conveniently breaks down to be stored when not in use. Want to save 10% on your first-time purchase? Head over and sign up today to make that happen. Boosterbath.com. This is the Hard Parking Podcast, brought to you by Right Honda out of Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm your host, Jhae Finning. Oh man, so I've had a hell of a month. In a good way. As we wrap up August, the month in review, I had NS Expo, which I've talked about before. It's one of the 2 events I look forward to all the time, every year. Then after that, I was able to go and see the unveiling of the Acura Type S, which I have previously talked about. I'm going to tell you a story about that too in a second. Then family time in Michigan, got to hang out with some old friends. It's all about friendships. I'm really big on relationships. There's some people I just didn't get an opportunity to see, but fortunately there were others that I did. Got back here, and then we just wrapped up an awesome weekend with Mark and Stephanie Stoneman. Mark is a strong supporter of the show. Like, we hung out every day, the 4 of us, sometimes 6 of us, sometimes 8 of us, and it was just nonstop. Go, 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 go. He had an opportunity to come over and record a session with me, so be looking for that coming up in another episode. Maybe next week, maybe the week after, but it was really fun. Really good conversation. That's one of the things. I don't have a big family, so my friends have always been as important to me as many of your family members if you've had really big and really close families. But just because you have a big family doesn't mean everything is good. I know a lot of people with big families who do not get along with other members of their family because at the end of the day, people are people. So it's not always a bad thing that I don't have a very large personal family. But my friends and then my wife's family is just kind of an extension of that. Back to Monterey Car Week. So I had an awesome opportunity to, we'll just say this. I got a verbal commitment from Adam Carolla to come on this podcast. And that's a big deal to me. If you guys don't remember, we've had Matt the Motorator DeAndrea, which is one of Adam's right-hand men. It is his right-hand guy for all things motorsports and cars. He's been doing a podcast with Adam for 11 years now. He has one called The Shift Steer Media. He also has another one with CarCast. You guys got to check that out. But I've remained in contact with Matt over the years of running into those guys in Monterey. And so they're always at the same small little Acura party. In fact, Reggie Jackson, the baseball legend, Reggie Jackson, was also there in attendance, and this is the first time I'd seen him. Samuel Dew, former editor-in-chief of Super Street, was there. RJ DeVera was there. And everybody's coming on the podcast at some point. But I was able to get Adam to commit, and that was a big deal. But they were kind of making fun of me because initially I thought I wasn't going to be able to go to this event. My wife planned our travel day for our family trip for everybody, but that was the same day as the Acura reception. So I figured, well, it was a good run. You know, I've been to a handful of them, and, you know, it would be nice to have gone to this one with the NSX Type S, which eventually I did. But our travel arrangements changed, and the opportunity opened up. And so I hit up Matt DeAndrea, and I said, hey, it looks like I'm going to the party anyway. I had some travel plans changed, so I'll definitely be there for Thursday, so I'll see you guys Thursday. And he said, you're going to come just for that? It's kind of weird, but okay, see you Thursday. And I'm like, yeah, it is kind of weird. And I was like, yeah, like for me, it was kind of a big deal. And then when we were standing there at the reception, he had mentioned to Adam that I'm going to be selling my NSX, and then I'm only there for that event. And Adam Carolla looks at me and goes, you're just came out here for this, huh? Just this one event? You're not here all weekend? I was like, no. I mean, I've been there for a few days before, but it just didn't work out. But to me, it was a big deal. It's just one of those things, you know, you get to rub shoulder. Well, first off, you see people you haven't seen in a year, and then you get to kind of shoot the shit casually with people that you otherwise would never have the opportunity to. Now, it's not one of those things where if I were to walk up to Adam Carolla he would be like, oh, hey, Jhae, what's up? He wouldn't. He doesn't fucking know my name. He doesn't remember. Another funny thing about Adam is he doesn't talk a lot. If you're a consumer of his media, consumer of everything that he does, and I mean, the Man Show was so long ago. So long ago. Loveline was so long ago. But every time I've seen him, let's say I've been to that Acura thing 5 times, and I think I've seen him 5 times. And every time I have a super short conversation with him. But he doesn't talk a lot. But anyway, so they were both kind of making fun of me. And then we called up good friend of the show, Wes Tankersley, and that was actually Adam Carolla's idea. I told him that, Wes Tankersley is a big fan of his. And he said, well, maybe later on you should call him up on FaceTime. We can say hi, which I thought was pretty cool. I would have loved that. And Wes loved it. I would have fucking loved it. I wish I would have recorded it. Potential big announcement coming on September 1st for people like me, which is in just a couple days, I guess. Today's Monday. When you're consuming this, by Wednesday, I'll have some news on the future of my vehicles. Can't wait. Transformers War for Cybertron is something I found on Netflix, just kind of popping through a few weeks ago. I'm a big Transformer fan. I never talk about Transformers, but that was one of my 2 cartoons. I know everyone's like, what about Robotech? Well, I love Robotech too, but as far as mainstream, it was Transformers. I was a diehard Optimus Prime. I said on a Q&A recently, which on-screen death hurt me the most, I'd have to say it was Optimus Prime when he died in the movie. But I don't really consume much Transformer stuff after that. I watched the Michael Bay movies, and I saw Bumblebee, which is a lot more like the Transformers that I'm used to. But I just decided to check it out. Transformers War for Cybertron trilogy, and it is fantastic. If you're a fan of the animation, if you were when you were younger, this is a made for Netflix anime exclusive. That's exactly what it's called. And the animation is crazy. At first, it took me a second to get used to it. But once I got used to it, I started looking at all the little details and all the frames. And I was like, how did they do that? That is amazing. It's amazing when they're on Cybertron. It's amazing when they're in space. It's amazing when they're on Earth. Back on Cybertron. So if you have an opportunity, check that out. I almost finished season 1 of Attack on Titan. I know I haven't talked about this stuff in a long, long, long time, but Attack on Titan is a crazy anime. But not too crazy, because some of that shit is like, it's just too far out there for me. And Attack on Titan is pretty fucking weird. But I think I'm on episode 25, maybe 26 of season 1. I think there's only 2 seasons, maybe 3. But I'm glad I re-engaged with that. The family time in Michigan. Let me jump to that. Like I said a few minutes ago, I don't have a big family. I've never had a big family. We had family reunions when I was much younger. But as you get older, you just kind of drift apart, I guess. And I know that my cousin had talked about doing like a cousin's reunion. But the thing is, I have a small family on my mom's side. And I have a small family on my dad's side. And I think the cousins thing was, shit, I don't even know whose side that's on anymore. Maybe it was on my mother's side, my cousin Blair. But I never engaged. It's one of those things where you don't see, I haven't seen them in 20, 30 years. I've seen Blair. But the rest of the cousins, I probably haven't seen them since I was a teenager. If that, like an early teenager. I mean, I'm 45 years old. And there was never that strong family bond for me. I think it's because of my past. I would just never have that tight bond with any of my cousins. Really. Like I had a couple cousins that I was really cool with. I had a younger cousin that was my favorite cousin. He passed in a car accident the summer after he graduated high school. And, I'm in loose contact with his sister on social media, but I just kind of fallen away from that. So, but Yvette's family, my wife, there's a lot of them, and her siblings are tight. I mean, they have their issues sometimes, like as all siblings do, but, when we get together, whether they come down here or we do a big trip like we just did in Michigan, you have 17, 18 people at the house. 5 or 6 bedrooms. Some people come over every day and hang out. Everybody else is just sleeping there. You have kids running around making noise and having a good time. And it's good. It's relaxing. It's fun. You're playing cornhole. You're getting on the pontoon, getting on the kayaks and all that shit. And those are times that it kind of reminds me of my life growing up and just having that kind of fun. and no one's sitting around on their devices. Like sometimes the kids get bored and they turn on their little devices, but overall they're just running around and playing. And the adults are just doing what adults do, playing cornhole and getting drunk and just having small talk and conversation. And that shit is fun. So I'm looking forward to us doing it again. Hopefully it's not on Monterey Car Week or in a Sexpo, but those are memories. Many episodes ago, I asked, how are these kids creating memories now? And we're helping them. As adults, we're helping them create those memories of going on these family vacations and renting out cabins and playing ping pong in a garage that's been turned into an entertainment room. We help them create those memories. So maybe not all is lost. I need to get Chris Ashworth on here. So I want to talk about the Vector. I know a lot of people are probably listening to this, at least a handful of people are listening to this because of the title of this episode, What's Cooler Than a Countach? So when I was in Michigan, I had an opportunity to ride in chassis 001 of a Vector W8. And I talked about this car in past episodes, but we finally got it to work. Mr. Chris Ashworth, which is DT1 Rockstar on Instagram. We were supposed to make this happen last year, and the pandemic era kind of screwed that up. Reached out to him, and he connected me with the owner of this vehicle, and I sent him an email, and he said, okay, let's make it work. So I drove all the way out to the country to see him, and this is a classic setup. I'm on this winding, nice road in Ada, Michigan, which is right over by Amway. Trees are covering the road. Beautiful, beautiful. These are the kind of roads that you want to take like a Porsche 911 on or something and just drive. Not necessarily, whip it around every corner, but just enjoy the drive. And I get to this guy's address and I almost blow past it because you turn right and it's one of those narrow dirt entrances with two addresses. His house is on one side, the other residence was on the other side, but you can't see either one of them when you turn in. So I follow the arrow to this gentleman's house. I'm not saying his name, just out of respect. And it's winding around. So you could fall right off this little mountain, this little hill, probably 30 feet down. And it's dirt. And I'm sitting there thinking, this guy drives this car on this, or maybe he has another way. And so I park and he comes out and shake his hand, and separate from the house, as you always see in movies and some of these collectors, like a pole barn type of thing. And the garage door or the barn door is kind of halfway open, and there it is. You can just see it. It's turned toward the door, this Vector, this dark gray Vector. And then I noticed this guy has a bunch of other cars in there, a few other cars, pretty unique cars. I see another one. I'm like, what kind of front is that? That's weird. Is that an Acura? Like, what the hell is that? Kind of look like a TL. And I really wish I could have taken photos. He doesn't really like people taking photos, doesn't want people to find out where he lives, stuff like that. And that's kind of old school, but I respect it. I respected it. As much as I wanted to take a few pics, I didn't even take a selfie. I took one photo of a poster that we took outside of the little pole barn thingy and leaned up against a tree so I can send it to Samuel Dew. Because when I was a kid, I used to do Road and Track's Exotic Cars Quarterly, and I had brought that up when I was in Monterey and a few people, and they had no idea. They don't remember that magazine. So you don't remember Road and Track's Exotic Cars Quarterly? I remember that, because the magazines were like $6 a piece, which is very expensive, especially in 1988. And Exotic Cars Quarterly means you get one like every 3 or 4 months, whatever quarterly is. But I bought it because of the Vector. See, back then we didn't have access to, there was no internet. There was no internet in 1988 or 1989. And if there was, it was not on a consumer level. Like nobody had it. Nobody had internet at home. And even if they did, it was dial-up modem of 56K. And it was actually before that, it was like 28K. Before 56, it's like 28. But everything we wanted, we had to go and we'd have to buy a magazine. We'd have to take a newspaper, and you would just cut out your clippings. That's the only way we had access to anything, which kind of created this really cool aura, this larger than life thing. That's what they say, to take a sports reference, Michael Jordan. He's obviously great. In my opinion, he's the best player, the greatest player I've ever witnessed with my own eyes. But part of that mystique was there was no Twitter. There was no Google. You couldn't just, SportsCenter was just barely around, but No one watched it. If you wanted to see highlights, you'd have to watch the top 10 plays of the day. And then maybe your player was on there, maybe they weren't. But anyway, so the vector in these cars, like that was the only way to get it. But that's the only photo I took. But we walked around the car, and this thing is wide. I have a pretty vast wingspan, and my NSX is low, and it's a lot wider than you would think it is. It's a lot smaller than people think it is. And the Vector was no different. In fact, I spread my arms out left to right on the spoiler, and I could barely touch the ends of the spoiler. Actually, I don't even think I made it to the end. I think there's maybe a quarter of an inch on both sides. Like, this thing is wide. And it's made out of, like, airplane parts. Like, aerospace technology was, like, a big thing. The fuel door is from a Huey helicopter. There's rivets. There's exposed rivets on the car, on the inside trim, on the outside, on the hatch. It's got plexiglass windows on the side that slide sideways, so you can't roll them down. It's got a sunroof that is always there. In other words, your head's going to be burnt. So I can imagine driving this thing across country. And I asked the gentleman, I said, well, how many miles have you driven? Like, what's the farthest you've gone in this thing? He said he drove to Detroit once and came back. So that's a few hours. That's like a 4-hour round trip, which is very impressive in that car. But the seats in this thing, they're Sparco leather seats. Damn, they were comfortable. This vehicle was incredibly difficult to get in. I got in the driver's side, actually got in first and kind of looked around. And this thing it's a 3-speed automatic, but it's not really. It's really hard to explain because you don't really. It's just hard to explain. But the thing that looks like it would be the shifter is on your left, not your right. So basically, you're sitting right next to the passenger if you're the driver. But what's impressive about the interior, like the steering wheel is silly looking. It looks like something from a fair or a traveling carnival. But the display of the car, and you can Google this, the Vector W8 interior. I urge you to Google it. The display is like a line drawing of the car. And then all the buttons are like straight out of an airplane. It's like Knight Rider, but cooler. Everything. The speedometer, if you want to know how fast you're going, it doesn't have a needle that kind of goes up and over clockwise. It actually scrolls like it scrolls like the Price is Right wheel. You guys know. You always get the old lady who kind of rocks it up and then pulls it down really quick, tries to get that magic number. So as you speed up, that turns that way, and that's how you know how fast you're going. That's crazy. The RPMs are the same way. I swear the thing has an altimeter built into it. Like everything is like aircraft-like on the interior. And then he asked me, dude, he goes, well, hop in and we'll take it for a spin. I was like, holy shit. Now that was cool. And of course, I hop in, this thing turns on, it explodes like this, and I mean, the thing has a 6.0 liter twin turbo V8, 625 horsepower, 600 something feet of torque, significant turbo lag, almost like an MK4 Supra, where you get on it and it howls and then it moves. But riding around in this thing, you're so low to the ground, and the front windshield is at such a heavy angle, like you can't see the front of the car. Like in the NSX, I'm used to seeing the front, the driver, and the hood, the driver's side, and passenger fenders, like a go-kart. This is like you're sitting on the ground, but you can't see what's in front of you. It's kind of weird, and it's built for this, so you feel like it's almost as like you're in an airplane and you're just kind of floating on these winding roads. The suspension is soft, but not too soft. So you expect a harsh ride in this thing because you are on the ground. But just the smell, I mean, it smells like 1980s exotic car. It's an American exotic car, which is why it smells like that. You get kind of some of the exhaust coming in. The air conditioner sucks in fresh air from the sides of the car. So it's coming in from the mirror, and it blows surprisingly well. A little bit about this car is in January of 2021, sold out here in the Scottsdale area at RM Sotheby's, a purple one. And I didn't get to see it, but it went for $720,000, which was a record for the car in the auction. I think it was like a $250,000 car brand new. So some people ask me, how did it feel? Like, how was the speed? And I got to tell you, it felt like we were moving fast, but when you're so low to the ground and you're used to flying, like I'm used to flying in my NSX, it felt cool, but you weren't. And then it was designed to go fast. And these Sparcos were so comfortable, yet so sporty. So you feel it, but you don't feel it. Like if I was somebody not used to it, it might have felt different. But you just kind of take it all back and enjoy it. The posted 0 to 60 in this thing is 4.2 seconds, which by today's standards for a car like this, it doesn't seem like much, but for something that basically debuted in 1989, 1990, that's a hell of a lot. Quarter mile clean, 12 seconds. That's pretty good. Not great. But again, it's 3-speed automatic transmission. It was pretty cool. And I wish I had a photo, but I don't. So this gentleman had he had a handful of other really cool cars, a lot of one-offs. I didn't ask him what his trade was. I know he's retired now, but like this guy has cars that were just hand-built one-offs. And he just ordered one. He designed a car, and he's having the same guy who made one of the cars in his collection making him this car he just designed. I think it's being built on like a Camaro chassis or something. And then he had a few other cars there. He's got a few of the micro cars, I think is what they're called. Really small, like that little car from Family Matters that Urkel had, that little BMW, that funny looking aphid bug looking thing. He has like 2 of those, but not that car, like 2 other cars that look nothing like that, but they're tiny. In fact, the wheels on there are probably 7 inches from the outside of the rubber to the outside of the rubber, like really small. It's I don't know. It was weird. It was super cool. We'll just put it that way. Like I don't even know what to say. Thing weighs 3,000 pounds. Not bad. Body frame. Let's go over to chassis, suspension, powertrain. 3,320 pounds. Mid-engine, rear-wheel drive. Carbon fiber, Kevlar, and fiberglass tubular steel with aluminum panels and aluminum box sections. Rack and pinion, 13-inch vented discs front and rear, 3-speed automatic. Anyway, so that is my Vector. Now, in my opinion, and I said this on the last episode, I was kind of comparing the Lamborghini Countach posters to the Vector posters. The Vector is cooler than a Countach. And by the way, the new Countach, last time I was talking, it hadn't really come out yet. I've seen it. It's pretty cool, but it's not anything like the original in a sense, but I'm also a much older person. So I'm wondering what the kids are thinking when they see it, but they have so many choices now. Hell, my parents used to grow up eating Mike and Ike's, not Mike and Ike's, but Good and Plenty's. My parents grew up eating Good and Plenty's. I don't know anybody who eats that shit now. If you don't know what a Good and Plenty is, look it up. It's black licorice candy. You know what hot tamales are and Mike and Ike's? It looks like those, doesn't taste like those. But now we have all these other options of candies. Ain't nobody eating that black licorice shit. So it's the same thing with these sports cars, these hyper cars. There's so many. I don't think anything. Well, that McLaren T50 is pretty cool. But the Countach, I don't know what Lamborghini could do to really wow people. I think they only had a few dozen of them, and they have sold out already, which is good job by them. But if you put a triple white Countach in front of me and a Vector W8 and ask me to pick one, I'm going to take the Vector every time because it's just cooler. It's cooler than a Countach. Probably more reliable than a Countach too, believe it or not. The only problem with the Vector is, where do you get parts? In fact, the display that this gentleman had, the interior, the outline of the car, that whole thing, some of the bulbs were burning out. But he actually found a brand new one. He just has to find somebody to install it. So I guess they're still out there somewhere. At least with Lamborghini, Lamborghini itself is around. So you could probably find parts like for your Countach. But the Vector W8 is always going to be cooler than a Countach. Fight me on that. It's not the same appeal for people. Everybody knows Lamborghini. Everybody knows the iconic Countach. Not everybody knows Vector. It was kind of a janky. It's a car company who had problems and came along at the wrong times. And they were bought out by somebody else, and they made a few other models. But the W8 is, for my money, the best one visually, the most awe-inspiring one. Now, I think some future ones, I think there's like a WX3 that actually looks pretty bitchin' and is probably a lot better performer. I think it has like a Lamborghini motor in it or something. But the regular Vector, that's an American-made supercar that just came along in the wrong era. Kind of like Paris Hilton, right? She came along in the wrong era. She was the Kardashians before the Kardashians. Anyway, coming up, Billy Johnson is on the show talking about tires. I asked him, hey, does it really matter what kind of tire you buy if you're not like professionally race car driving? Like do people really need to break the bank for a nice set of tires? So you'll find out from Billy Johnson. And also, over the past few weeks, I've been able to rent a Chevy Equinox, a BMW 330i X-Drive. So I'll get into that at some point. Maybe I'll do it later on the show. Byron is here, friend of the show, financer of the show, and he's going to stop by and help me with the Q&A segment. I think I'll tell you about one of the rental cars. I'll tell you about the Chevy Equinox. This segment is sponsored by Higher Quality Detail out of Tempe, Arizona. They specialize in premium vehicle protection solutions and cosmetic customizations as your one-stop shop, ranging from basic detailing options to ceramic coating, paint correction, protection films, and more. Visit them at Ceramic Pro Arizona on Instagram or Higher Quality Detail. That's HYER. All that's one word, by the way. And start looking your best today. So during this trip, while we were in Michigan, usually we rent, as you guys know, like a Chrysler Pacifica or something. But it wasn't the whole family this time from here. It was just myself, my wife, my mother-in-law, and Zeke. So there's no reason to have a minivan. So I wanted to rent an SUV, but I didn't want to pay for a full-size SUV. So I figured, hey, let's just get something kind of cool, maybe. And we got stuck with a Chevy Equinox. It has CarPlay. It also is one of the few vehicles that I've rented that has a USB-C and a standard USB and an aux input, which is pretty impressive. I was actually shocked to see that in a vehicle like this. Not that a USB-C is fancy, it's just most cars still have the standard USB. The interior. So look, here's the deal. The interior was hard plastic. I hate when car manufacturers, the dashboard, the door, the door panel, like everything is hard plastic. So what I do is I kind of knock around on all the panels. When I'm driving, I can see the gap between the door and the dash. I shouldn't really be able to see. It should be small. Like there's a visual, like you could see, you could drop probably a pencil down that gap. And I know like it's not a luxury vehicle by any stretch of the imagination. And if you're thinking about buying a Chevy Equinox, my brother-in-law Wilson will tell you don't. Well, they cost $25,000 up to $30,000, and they have a huge 1.5 liter, 170 horsepower motor, towing capacity 1,500, so it can't really tow shit. I would say if you have the opportunity, just rent a Chevy Traverse, which is a little bigger than an Equinox and much better as far as I'm concerned. And those are always for rent. So if you have an opportunity on the lot and you're looking at an Equinox, see if there's a Chevy Traverse. Traverse is a mid-size 3-row SUV. The Equinox is a little bit smaller, and you can tell, like myself, my wife, the baby seat, and my mother-in-law, I had to really pack that thing to get our suitcases in. Like it was very difficult, and the stroller. Had we had a Chevy Traverse, it wouldn't have been as difficult because a Traverse is a little bit bigger, and it's $10,000 more. And if you want to buy one, you can tow a whole lot more with it as well, up to $5,000. You're not capped at $1,500. So it gives you opportunity to get a Traverse, forget the Equinox. Car's not really very good. I wish I could say more good things about it. I try to keep it fair because I don't even want to say it's a bang for the buck value. I'm sure there's plenty of other SUVs in that class that are better than a Chevy Equinox. Now it's redesigned for 2022, but we had a 21. Coming up, Billy Johnson, and then the Q&A segment. It's time for the Builder's Corner segment, sponsored by 4Wheel Online. For over a decade, 4Wheel Online has been bringing back the best truck accessories and truck parts to enhance the appearance and performance of all trucks and SUVs, dedicated to providing an extensive range of upgrades that will match any maker or model on the road. The truck products cover everything to give your truck a custom look and added functionality. Need a wheel and tire package? Head over and use a configuration tool. They carry all major brands of wheel and tires to go. So go get outfitted today. Visit them at 4Wheel Online. That's the number 4 wheel, singular, no S, online, or call them at 813-769-2451. Today's Builder's Corner guest returning to the podcast is Mr. Billy Johnson, out driving around somewhere.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be back.
Love having you on the Builder's Corner segment. What are you keeping busy with these days?
A lot of things, from still doing some car development with Ford on their production cars. I worked on the Ford GT, as well as I raced the car at Le Mans, but helped on the development of the GT road car, the Shelby GT350 and the GT500. I'm working with Roush Fenway Racing on their NASCAR Cup program on road courses, and tweaking around on my NSX, doing some fun stuff with that car that I'll be debuting in the not too distant future.
So it sounds like you really don't have a lot going on.
No, not really.
Which is why I had to bother you today for this. I wanted to talk to you about tires. And, the average listener to this show, I think they're just average Joes. And some of them are really deep into motorsports and big fans. And some of them like to go to the track, but some of them just want to buy tires for their vehicle. And the biggest question that I have really for you, and we can kind of break it down a little bit, but how important really for the average commuter are tire brands? Like, what's the different, what kind of is the point of diminishing returns for the average person? So for example, if I'm driving around on a Nissan Versa, right? Let me give you an example for this. And I'm just a commuter. I travel to and from work. I'm driving the speed limit. I'm not flooring it. Do I really need to buy, a $250 tire times $4,000, or can I probably get away with like an $89 or $69 tire?
That's a can of worms and a tough question, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much horsepower you have. It doesn't matter what kind of car you drive. The tires really are the only part of your car that touches the road. So the amount of grip and ability your car has is determined by your tires. So if you want to set a lap record on a racetrack, you want to get the best tires that you can or that you can afford. If you are daily driving your car and it rains a bunch.
Oh, Billy, are you there? I'm listening.
Between an expensive crash, maybe even like a life-threatening incident. So from a safety standpoint, for your daily driver, to performance of having the ability to stop and avoid hitting a car in front of you, or a crash, or a kid that jumps out in front of you. Really, your tires are the only thing that, or the most important thing that affects all of that. So from that viewpoint, I've always been a firm believer of trying to invest and buying the best tire that you can afford.
How much of that, given the example you just gave, and I appreciate that, how much of that is the tire and how much of that is your braking system? Because I'm sure, they work hand in hand, but if you could give a ratio, and this may be an impossible answer, assuming that these are brand new tires, these aren't tires that are 6 years old, they just left discount tire. How much of that is the tire? How much of that is their brakes, assuming their brakes are good?
Well, again, the most cars, even like older, less expensive cars, not like brand new luxury sedans, but
right,
like even affordable average Joe vehicles, pretty much anything should be able to lock up a tire and have the braking ability to lock up a tire at least once. So if you're on the freeway and you're just inexpensive daily driver and something jumps out in front of you, the actual stopping ability of the car is mostly determined by your tires. So if you have a $60 tire on there that doesn't have much grip, you're not going to be able to stop as short as if you had a little bit more expensive tire that's better designed. And I'm not just talking like lower tread wear and quote unquote stickier. I need to have race tires on my 1990 Nissan Altima.
Doesn't everybody?
But of course, if you can, go for it. But the difference between like a really cheap, no name brand tire and maybe a tire that's rated a little bit better. Again, like spending more doesn't necessarily mean it's going to perform better. Again, depending on your situation. If you're in places where it rains, wet weather performance does matter. So if you can, just with a little bit of research, and I like Tire Rack, they're a great resource.
I was just going to bring that up.
They don't sponsor me, maybe they should. So anybody at Tire Rack, reach out. But they have so many reviews, customer reviews, and I do like their customer reviews. The ones that are up there are average people, and they have really good insight. So it's just a good resource of stuff from their own test drivers to just general information and review on tires to educated customers reviewing tires too. So you could look at, okay, well, I don't want to spend a lot of money, and this tire has good wet performance, and I live in a place where it rains a lot, and out of all these different options that I could put on my car, these aren't the most expensive, but these have good wet weather performance and maybe cost an extra $20 more than something else, but it could be a significant difference in terms of safety. So again, just with a little bit of research, you can put yourself in a much better, safer place and a more educated, as a more educated buyer than just blindly going off of what your local tire shop is going to sell you. That gives them the biggest margins.
Right. It's important you said that. And also, and you mentioned something earlier, just because it's more expensive does not necessarily mean it's going to perform better. In the tire world, because it seems like this with just about every other thing, but in the tire world, is there such thing as paying for just the name?
I would say no. Like I'm very obviously familiar with the tire industry. I work with a lot of different tire manufacturers and also been involved with the development of tires. And just from that perspective of the industry, I don't think you're buying necessarily the name brand, because every manufacturer has such a broad array of tire models and makes, and it can definitely be overwhelming. It's like, do I put race tires on my Nissan Altima? Not, you could, and if that's what you want to do. If you want to do track days in your inexpensive car, sure, but you really need to look at what your driving purposes are. If you have a work truck and you put hundreds of thousands of miles on your truck, and brand X is again like $20 cheaper, that's $100 total for your set of tires. But if you're looking at tires that will probably last 50 or 80,000 miles, the difference of $100 over the course of 80,000 miles and having a tire that will last longer or that has better performance will definitely pay off much better in the long run. So again, that's why I like Tire Rack. You could just put in your vehicle. Like, you don't, let's say that you're not an expert. You could just put in your vehicle, look at what you use your car for, and then just get a lot of good information that will make you a far more educated buyer than most tire shops. Like, there are good tire shops out there with educated people, but I'd say, and I hate to talk bad on that industry, but there's not a lot of educated tire shops out there. Like, there are some, but most of them are not. So people are much better off just spending, again, it's a big purchase. It's the biggest part of the safety of your vehicle. Spend just a little bit of time and just look into that to make better decisions than what somebody else would just not spend 5 minutes on just hawking anything at you.
What I found before in the past, and I'm glad you brought up Tire Rack, because for the longest, I bought all my tires there. And, sometimes you'll find some tires that are, highly rated, 4.8 out of 5 stars, 6,000 reviews, and they might be on clearance. And so you can get a damn good tire.
Yep.
You could get a damn good tire for $70 a piece now. And if one blows out, maybe you can't get a replacement because maybe their manufacturer discontinued. But what I found in the past is I'd order tires, they'd show up at my door like 3 days later, and I would just take them to a local shop, and the shop would mount and balance them for me. And then you don't have to deal with their salesperson.
Definitely.
I had a guy, and I'll tell you about my NSX one. I moved out here to Arizona. I had some Sumitomo HRZs or something like that, right? Yep. But I did a lot of research on them, and they were, very highly rated. And I think I spent maybe $140 a piece on them, 160. And there's a local guy out here. He's super pompous, super whatever, right? He has an NSX, and he kind of scoffed at me so hard because I had Sumotomos. Like I was just the cheapest motherfucker in the world. I'm like, bro, I guarantee you. And the funny thing is he had some Pirellis on his NSX, and they were super stretched. So he was running an 8.5-inch front wheel BC4 on like a 205 tire.
Yeah.
And on the rear, he did, 255 on a 10.5, and he ended up losing control of his car and smashing it like outside of his daughter's school because he was trying to show off.
Yeah.
But he thought he knew everything because he had these expensive, name brand tires on his car, so he didn't do the research. So, yeah.
Well, that and tire fitment is important. So if you start pushing the limits of that, you can also adversely affect the performance of your car by stretching it or putting a mismatched set of tires, or tires that are too big for the wheel that will make the steering feel mushy. And there's definitely a lot to that. But if you just stick to the factory wheels and tire sizes, it's a little hard to go wrong from that standpoint. But the more you put wider wheels and tires, that fitment becomes important. And I wrote a big article on on how to properly size and select your wheels and tires if you want to do more research. And again, the more you start changing stuff around, the more effort you should put into making yourself more knowledgeable, so you don't put yourself in that kind of bad situation and end up crashing your car because your car has way less grip or snappy characteristics that wouldn't have been there if you put a proper wheel and tire widths on your car.
And that's on MotoQ, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so if you just look up how to properly, just type in how to properly size and select tires, you'll see the Moto IQ article that I wrote, and it's motoiq.com. It's a very comprehensive article on how to select what type of tire. So again, if you're looking at a daily driver tire, a performance-oriented tire, or a track tire, or if you're looking at running wider wheels, how to just select what the proper approach is to making the best decisions for going beyond and what the OEM designed the car for.
So we'll get you out of here on this. A lot of people in the car, not your specific industry, obviously, but the car scene, like the car show scene, right? The car shows and car events scene, I feel like they fall in love with buying whatever the trendy tire is. So everybody wants Toyos because everybody else has Toyos. Everybody wants the same Nittos. And I think that's kind of a dangerous thing, though, isn't it?
I guess it depends on what kind of tire you're referring to.
Like, they don't do a lot of the research, right? Because everybody's like, okay, you have those Nittos, I want those Nittos. You have those Toyos, I want to be sponsored by Toyo because everybody else is sponsored by Toyo. Just give me a tire.
Yeah. Well, again, tires are one of the most important things you can do to your car. So it depends on the use. If you put a very track-oriented tire on your car and it's not very good in the rain, and that's what you drive in the most, and you never track your car, well, that might not be the best decision to do. And vice versa, if you're new to tracking, or you just do some canyon runs and you might do one track day a year, and you're not the fastest guy in the world, even though you might think you are, you don't have to go with a full-blown track tire or a heavily track-focused tire. Just a high-performance street tire might be the better route to go, especially one that has a better ride quality, so you're not just droning, making a bunch of noise, and making for a really harsh ride that you have to live with every day. And that's another thing. There's a lot of performance tires that will vary in ride quality. So two tires might perform well on track, but one is quiet and compliant and comfortable. The other one is loud, drony, and harsh, and beats you up. So you could see a lot of reviews of people mentioning some of those comments again in some of those reviews on Tire Rack, just to get a better idea of what those options and what those different tires behave like.
Do you have an opinion on the Continental Extremes?
Yeah, they're like the Extreme Contact Sport. I'm a big fan of. It's very inexpensive. It's actually one of the best tires in the wet that are out there. Like the Extreme Contact Sport and the Michelin Pilot Sport PS4S are probably the two benchmarks for high performance street tires that perform well in the wet. So like you could put that on a BMW 5 Series or an M3 or a sports car, a Mustang, a Corvette. They do come Mustangs and Corvettes from the factory.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are like the two best tires. The Continentals are a bit more affordable than the Michelins, but they are at two different price points, probably the two benchmarks for that. So unless you're an advanced driver that does track days a lot, most track day people would probably be perfectly fine on those tires. Have issues on track, and they're both really quiet on the street, great street characteristics, and kind of the best well-rounded tire.
Cool. Well, that was a personal question because Michelin doesn't really care about me anymore. So at some point, I'm going to have to phase off of my Michelins and look at Continentals. So, Billy, thank you for joining. Hopefully, people are well educated and know that you just have to take a few seconds, do a little bit of research, and the world can open up to you all sorts of new opportunities to save money and get something good for yourself.
No problem.
It's time for the Q&A segment brought to you by The Credit Mix. Fix your credit, fix your life. Text HB Credit to 737-4CREDIT, 427-3348. Schedule your free 15-minute credit consult today. My bad. Again, text HB for hard parking credit. That's The Credit Mix with two E's. Fix your credit, fix your life. In-studio guest, Mr. Byron is back.
Hello.
Thank you for dragging yourself over here after work.
No worries. I enjoy it.
I like to share the responsibilities of the Q&A segment. And of course, people like you people are allowed here whenever
What do you mean,
like.
you people?
You know, the whole pronouns thing, and I'm not making fun of the pronouns, but it's one of those things that it feels, and this could be offensive to some, it feels in some places a little unnecessary. At my job, this is how something like that, and we'll get to the Q&A segment in a second, but I just thought about that, like the whole you people thing. It flips the world upside down in more ways than people think, right?
Okay.
So remember when we were small, at least in my school, you always said like the Pledge of Allegiance or something like that.
Yeah, I remember I used to have to do that too.
Right. And then at sports at halftime, you know, they say whatever, but one kid in school was offended or their parents were offended, and that ended up changing it for everybody. And that probably wasn't the intention, but that's what it came to be. Now that it is what it is to a certain extent, but what's happening with the pronoun movement, and again, if you want to be identified, he, him, his, fine.
Right.
And there's some confusing ones in there, and people still aren't quite sure how to deal with it because it's so new and it's not proper English.
Right.
I mean, they refers to group, not one person, and it's hard to use it in a sentence without offending someone. But I guess where I'm going with this is this.
We're forcing changing the definition of they almost.
Yeah. So things that are hundreds of years old. Shit, that's probably been used for thousands of years. But, in healthcare IT, now we're trying to figure out, because they just within the past few years started configuring the software to accept other as your gender. Male, female, other. And now we're working on the alias. There was always an alias, like your name's Byron, but you prefer Ron.
Right.
But that didn't trickle down to your medical record and further down in multiple systems. Now alias has more to do with almost like male, female, other.
Right. I've actually seen other on mortgage statements. Or rather, not mortgage statements, but when you're applying for a mortgage or you're refining those statements, when they ask for your information, it'll now say other.
Right.
Or prefer not to respond, as I think are the two newer options I've seen. Male, female, other, prefer not to respond, I think is how it is.
Yeah, and then it's like synonymous between like your preferred name and your alias. So they're similar, but they're not similar. But now we're asking all these companies to change their whole software structure. They've been doing this stuff for years. And I know that's the worst excuse in the book. It's always been this way. I get it.
Right.
But I don't know. It just kind of complicates things. So anyway, what I wanted to do is free text on Instagram for pronouns, because I was like, all right, I'll play the game. I'll do his and him. And I see it now in email signatures.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen it.
I see it everywhere now. And people think I'm a girl at work sometimes because they see Jhae and they assume it's a she. Not it. I'm sorry I offended somebody out there. They assume I am a she.
Right.
And I accept that because I spell my name all fucked up. But I don't know. It's just kind of turning everything upside down. And it's just, I don't know. It's just one of those things that I hope if that's the way it's going to be, then it needs to stay that way. If that's fair. Because queer in my day used to be offensive.
Right.
And that's actually acceptable.
Right.
Now, if you're queer, that's acceptable. If I called you a queer 20 years ago, I'd get my face punched in.
Right.
Ready to have some fun?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's one. That last one, that's a segment that I haven't made a faux pas there yet, to my knowledge. But I suck with names and all that anyway, so I tend to speak of other people in very generic terms anyway, because I suck with names. I think I had to meet Jhae about 4 times before I actually knew his name. I just knew he was cool NSX dude.
Black dude NSX.
Right.
That narrows it down.
So yeah, I don't have too much to say on that topic just because I speak very general. If I see you, for the listeners who actually know me, if you've never heard me actually refer to you by name outside of when we first met, it's probably because I forgot it. No offense.
I want a
good way
text
of talking where you won't know that I forgot it though.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, like, hey, what's up, big guy?
Yeah.
Hey,
what's good, dude? How you doing,
good, dude?
What's good, man? Long time no see. I know your face. I know your car. Long time no see. Or whatever. And I call everybody dude. I call everybody dude or hey or they or whatever.
But the problem is someone could take offense to that now. And we're not trying to be remiss on this, but that is the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
But I wanted to free text mine to be those people, because that's not one. It's
Right.
they. I said I want a free text to be those people and they are or something. Like, how they are.
Right.
You know how those people are. But it won't let you free text. It's literally set in Instagram that you have to pick from their category list somewhere.
That's because people be putting all types of stuff. I'd probably identify as a V10 that I can't afford.
Did you see the meme, the trans fender meme?
I did not. Sounds like I'm missing something.
Yeah, it's a car, and I think the front driver's side fender is a different color.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's something like this. I saw my first trans fender today or something, so it's kind of a funny car joke.
Nice.
I mean, you have to be able to laugh and make light of certain things.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, put it like this. When someone says I blew a
tranny.
Yeah. Well, okay. I didn't want to get you in trouble. If someone says I blew a tranny, it means you got to clarify today.
Yeah, but the thing is, we all have friends in the alphabet community,
mm-hmm.
and they just laugh and roll with it because they get the humor in it. Like, you have to be able to laugh when it's okay to laugh, and then be offended when it's obviously someone's trying to offend you.
That's always been where I've stood on pretty much everything. You
Right.
can tell when someone's saying something or specifically trying to be hurtful versus
Right.
when it came from either pure ignorance or when it came from just a joke. If you're joking with me, you can say almost anything, and I know you're joking, you're fine. If it comes from ignorance and I can tell, I might pull you to the side and correct you. And if you're trying to be offensive, then okay, we can go that route if you want to go there, you know?
I agree. It's all context. Context is everything.
Right.
All right, man. So Dre Day asks, I've known Dre since middle school, by the way. First off, I want to say Alice Gamina and Jen Mac bought a Hard Parking Podcast shirt for the purpose of me giving it away. And so the last few episodes, I've said, if you don't know me personally, if you never met me, email me and I will give you that shirt. No one has emailed me, which means no one's fucking listening, or everybody knows me, or I need to just let up. So at this point, let's say you're not in my normal everyday circle and you're a fan of the show. If you're the first person to email me, hardparkingpodcast@gmail.com, I will give you that shirt that is donated for the sole purpose of me giving it away to one lucky listener.
It is a really nice shirt. I just got a chance to see him. I just got mine. It's a really nice shirt, really high quality material.
It's a step up. So if you have the first shirt is nice, but it's like big logo wear. The second shirt, I purposely try to make it more stylish and fashionable. Having a conversation with Wes Tankers the other day, and he says, I don't know how many people want to walk around with a podcast shirt. And he's right. There's not people walking around with Joe Rogan podcast shirt. But I feel like if you go out of your way to kind of make it stylistic, and the new shirt, I mean, the ones weirdly, we're both wearing the same shirt today. We're wearing the first podcast shirt.
He got the email.
Yeah, I got the memo. I got the memo. But the newer one is you can wear it anywhere, anytime, and you don't feel like you're a walking advertisement for me, because who wants to be a walking advertisement for me? Dre Day asks, how fast is too fast for a streetcar? Horsepower or speed? What do you got?
You know what? I'll say I'm probably going to put for a streetcar too fast. I'm probably going to peg it at about, believe it or not, 500 horsepower. And here's what I mean by that. That gets to the point where it's now unusable on the street. It's unusable pretty much. And when I say unusable, I mean from the standpoint of, can I rev my motor out? Can I let the car stretch its legs without doing jail speeds? And if you're making 500 horse, probably not. As soon as you put your foot to the floor, if there's a cop around, you're getting busted. And I say that from personal experience. I haven't been busted, but I can't rev my motor out anywhere without doing, 90, 100, right? So I honestly think about 500 horsepower is when you get to the point of, yeah, it's fun to have. Yeah, you can enjoy it, but it's no longer truly usable on the street unless, again, you're specifically trying to race somebody, which that's another conversation.
We've had that conversation, you and I.
Yes, we have.
Take it to the track.
Right.
So what about speed, though? I mean, it says horsepower or speed.
Speed, I mean, it varies a little bit more because, going down, say, Higley, if you're doing 60, 65, yeah, you're probably going too fast. But, on the 202, that ain't nothing. 202, if you're under 80, you're probably going to get ran over. So, I mean.
Closest speed limit, I think, is 65, but he's not lying.
Right. So that more so varies depending upon where you are. But I'd say if I had to give an overarching for non-highway streets, I'll say probably 60 is probably the fastest you want to go on a non-highway street. Once you get highways, I'm going to say I'll say maybe about 100 for highways, and that's for cars. Maybe if you're in like a big truck or SUV, I'll break it down to 90. And I only say that because your average person, and not talking like car people or track people who know their vehicle in and out, your average person, even if you're doing 105, 110, say on a highway somewhere, you probably don't have the ability to correct if something goes wrong. You hit a pothole, there's something pops out in the road, whatever. You got to be able to rein that car in, and even like a piece of crap, whatever. At $105 or $110, life is coming at you fast, so you got to be able to correct. So those are my thoughts there.
I'm going to play a different angle, but I think it's got the same result. I think with horsepower, I don't want to, because I see what you're saying with the 500, and I think it depends on the vehicle, right?
It does depend.
So you have a lot of vehicles that come now with over 500, like a Roush Stage 2 Mustang. I think it's like 700 something, but it's built for that in a certain sense. And I think the angle I want to play is if the vehicle is built for speed and built for power, then you can the too fast is a limit thing, and the limit to that would be your reaction time to any given thing, like you were basically saying.
Yeah.
Flying up a side street, you know when you're going too fast.
Yeah.
When shit is flying by too fast. And on a highway, it's a little different, but it's a difference between taking I was going to use a Dodge Ram T-Rex, but I want to use something that makes a little bit more sense, because we can admit that's just a big, FU power.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily, you can't convince me why it should be there. And everybody knows it's just kind of fun to say, I got something you don't.
Yeah.
But if you take like a C8 Corvette.
Right.
Right. I don't know what the horsepower output is. What is it like?
470. High fours. Yeah. Yeah. High
470,
fours,
480, something like that.
For the base one.
Right. That thing is made to go 180 easily.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're flying down the highway at 180, it's 10 lanes, 5 on each side, minimal to no traffic. I wouldn't say 180, but if you're flying like 120, 130, it's not going to feel like much.
Right.
But if you have a 1988 Chevy Silverado pickup and you decide to drop an LS in it and do all this shit, that thing's not designed for that power. You may be able to go good in a straight line.
Doesn't have the brakes for it, unless you could totally rebuilt it. The chassis isn't designed for it.
And then the aerodynamics, like everything, no matter what you do to that thing, it's not designed to do that. And so from that aspect, it could be very dangerous, even at 470 horsepower.
Right.
To go to your original point of 500. So I think it all depends. Depends on how many Karens are in the neighborhood. Depends on how many kids are getting out of school.
Definitely. And that's why, like, without throwing all those variables into it, that's why I try to look at it from a standpoint of even like, a Dodge Durango RT. So I'm not even talking about like the Hellcat one, but like the RT with the V8, I think it has. You get that thing to 500 horse. Let's say you do some long twos, whatever mods, 500 horse. You put your foot in it. As soon as you clear like a gear and a half, like you're in third, you can't finish revving out third before you're let a cop see you. It's a wrap. But let's say like the guy in the S2000, for example. Those things make what, like 220, 230, something like that?
Something, yeah.
But you can rev it out to like sixth, right? Or like fifth and have fun. And all you got to do is back off a little bit and you good in the law's eye. So it's like, to me,
You have the whole weight stopping power thing with the big trucks too.
Yeah.
Alex donated the shirt to the show. What's the term for those angled wheels on some stance cars and do they make special tires for them? The big negative camber. I think they're just called stance.
Yeah, I think they just call it stance or just camber, negative camber. Yeah,
I don't like the word stance for those because stanced is basically anyone who has.
Wait, no, don't they call it hella flush? Ain't that it?
Is it hella flush? Well, hella
is that the word? I don't know. Sorry.
Well, I think it could be, but I think like when I think of flush, that's where the wheels and the tires meet the fender perfectly.
Right, but then hella flush is when I think it starts to go there. Like specifically hella flush. Yeah, look it up.
Let's go to the laptop on this. We're both old.
Yeah, I'm old man river when it comes to this stuff.
I typed in hella F and it came up with hella funny, hella fun. Oh, because I need to put an L in there. Hella flush crew name. I think you're right. It's hella flush.
Okay.
That's the term, hella flush.
I was right.
No, they don't make special tires for it. And that's part of the danger. The contact patch, to use a tire term, to use a track term, is minimal. So you're going to blow through your tires quicker and you actually have no real control of your car, I wouldn't think. And when you need to, especially when you put 500 horsepower in that 1992 Civic hatchback that's hella flush.
I'm just going to say it. The car's going to look like ass. It's going to handle like ass. It's going to ride like ass. I'm old. I don't need my car's suspension beating the living crap out of me over every leaf I run over. And
all four of your wheel wells are going to be all beat up.
And I'm going through tires every 2 weeks. No, I'm good.
Weirdly, I don't want to say I think it's cool because I think it's dumb, but I have seen a few where it's like, that's interesting. It looks kind of like a toy.
I've seen cool show cars with that setup. And when I say show cars, I mean, I've even talked to the owners in some cases and literally dudes like, it's built this way for the show. When it actually gets driven on the road, they completely change the suspension setup to something more drivable. So I've seen cool show cars that way, but I've never seen one that someone has to actually go back and forth to work in. That's cool, in my opinion.
It's a fad. I actually haven't seen very many of them lately in the last couple of years. Right?
Good point. No, I haven't seen one.
Yeah, they were everywhere a few years ago.
Like 2017, maybe?
Yeah, they were everywhere a few years ago. So maybe it's already fading out. they probably stole it from Japan, like everything, and like those super long exhaust pipes, those Harley exhaust pipes.
I could at least appreciate some of that because that was part of the whole Bozoku thing they were doing in Japan. And I've seen a couple Bozoku builds that is like, if you appreciate it for what it is, it was pretty cool. But to me, it's kind of an all or nothing thing. You do just the long pipes and nothing else, it looks kind of dumb. But if you do the wing and the front splitter that sticks all out in front of the car, like there's an art to that I can appreciate.
I agree. Quincy asks, what's the minimum value of something you would sell online as opposed to just throwing it away?
That number used to be about $20 when I was younger. Now it's pretty much, I'll say, depending on what it is, 50 to 100. And it depends on what it is. I don't like people coming to my house. I'm tired of meeting people for stuff. I'm tired of people flaking on me. So I've gotten to the point, and I try not to really throw it away, but more so donate it, you know.
Right.
If I got stuff I don't need, I'll donate. And even before I donate it to like a Goodwill or something like that, I'll try to find somebody who needs it. Like, hey, do you need this? You need X, Y, Z? You can have it. It's not worth me trying to sell and somebody's trying to negotiate me an extra $5 over it. And then they don't have change. So then now I got to, I'm not doing that no more.
We have offer up and then they're like, hey, will you accept whatever for it? It's like, okay, well, at least on offer up, that's what it's called, offer up. So I don't really get mad at people when they do that. You know my thoughts on listing it elsewhere and getting that bullshit. And you basically, I'm going to agree with everything you said. Well, except for 50 to $100. I think $20, but I don't really sell. Like I used to sell shit on eBay. I went through that whole eBay phase.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's basically you either donate or you throw it away. And it depends on what it is. Because I hate wasting shit someone else could use.
Same here.
But, or you list it up for free.
Can I share a real quick offer up story? And I promise I'll make it quick.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So years ago, after my daughter got a little older, my wife had bought this reclining chair for her so she can lay back and nurse. Daughter's older. We don't use chair no more. Time to get rid of it. I posted on offer up like $120, and this chair retail like $300 something. It was a nicer chair. But $120 is what I had it listed for. Had a couple people flake, no big deal. Finally, someone shows up, they're interested, or they message me, they're interested. They're coming to pick it up Friday. That Friday, I work from home. They come get it. And showed up with the cash. They pulled up in it was like a Chevy Cobalt, 2-door. And so I asked, I was like, well, how are you going to get this home? And it's this lady and her son, and she's like, oh, well, we got what are those? I'm blanking on the name. Bungee cords. Yeah. She's like, oh, I got bungee cords. I'm going to put it on the roof. I'm like, oh, okay. Now, this is a sizable chair. I mean, it's a single person chair, but it's a big, like fluffy, foofy chair. This is a big chair. You're not going to fit it in the car.
Somewhere between dad's recliner and.
Yeah, like a lazy boy, like a newer version of a lazy boy. And so I'm like, oh, okay. Are you just like around the corner with it? Because they got to me fairly quickly. So I'm thinking, oh, maybe they're just around the corner. Maybe they're in the neighborhood. The car's not going to go over 5 miles an hour. Fine. They're like, oh no, we're in Northeast Mesa. Now, mind you, I was in Southeast Gilbert. So for those who aren't immediately here, that was at least a 20, 25 minute drive for them to get home on main streets or potentially highways. I'm like, man, this car, you're not going to make it unless you do 5 miles an hour the whole way. She's like, no, I'll be okay. I'm like, ma'am, look, there's a Home Depot up the road. You want to have your son just run in rent a Home Depot truck, pay the little $20, rent the truck.
$20 an hour.
And she's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, well, I don't really have. I'm like, I'll take $20 off the price, rent the truck, get it there. I don't want to see you having an accident on the road because of this thing. She's like, are you sure? She's like, I know we can do it. I'm like, it's your call, ma'am. This is what I think you should do. Long story short, end up renting the truck, and then they take the chair, and I take the. She ended up paying me like $80 for it because that's what she had, and I was just like, I don't care, just go. But yeah, no, that was. I think she was seriously gonna try to drive with this Cobalt, which the roof, and it's not even like it had like bicycle racks on it. It was a smooth roof.
Well, it was Cobalt, so it probably wasn't smooth.
Yeah, well.
But no, that's not a big.
That was going to be an accident, right? That was going to be an accident waiting to happen. That chair was going to be, and it was a big chair. That chair was going to be in somebody's windshield. Anyway, that's my story.
And a damn good one. Quincy asks again. I'm doing back to back for you, Quincy. Usually I don't do this. Usually I hold a question, but and I'll be completely honest with you. I was actually going to crumple this one up, but I actually have an answer for you. And then I'll crumple it up. Why can't Android Auto seem to get it right when it comes to car compatibility and hands-free usage?
It's in the name, Android.
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, like my man over there said, it's an Android, and I think Android is still open source software. So when it comes to CarPlay iOS, it's locked. There is one and only one iOS at any given time, unless you didn't update your phone, and that's on you. Android could be any number of configurations, which is probably why it doesn't work very well. But don't ever ask me another Android Auto question.
He did that with aggression, by the way.
Yeah. Last question. Dre has another one. We'll skip it for later. It's a longer discussion piece, and I wasted everyone's time with my opening rant. This one comes from Eric. Talk about motorcycles. Maybe some that has wanted to race you. Now, I almost crumpled this up because I didn't ask for fucking suggestions on what to talk about on the show. I said, would you have a question? Is that a question? So I'm going to turn that into a question. And, has any bikes ever try to race you? Or are you ever crazy enough to try to race a bike unless it's like a friend, which,
I've never had a bike seriously try to race me. But I wouldn't race a bike. It's like, my car's fit okay quick, but I'm not beating any bike that is worth racing. Like I'm way heavier and yeah. Plus, I personally don't think that's smart. Just because all of the accidents and all the issues we have, racing a car is dangerous enough, but a bike is like, at least a car, you might walk away. Bike, you hit something, you're not walking away in most cases, right? At race speed.
Yeah, I agree. And even a 650, right? Which like the beginner crotch rocket, the 650s. 2 wheels, instant acceleration. Neither one of us, and I'm going to speak on your behalf here,
right?
If you don't mind.
Right.
Neither one of us are on a GTR Alpha 7, Alpha 9, Alpha 10, or Alpha 12 kit, turboed. So even my NSX, boosted as it is, I might play with you a little bit, but I would never realistically race anybody on a bike.
I can't even launch my car in first gear without blowing the tires off. So
yeah, it
against
to be for
bike,
a roll.
Forget about it. And even in a roll, I might have a small chance if we were doing like a 50 or 60 roll because my car has some legs. But as you saw from our little spat,
you brought it up.
I'm still gonna lose.
I didn't bring it up.
Oh yeah, no. Oh yeah, no. He took me to Gap City. It was a good run. He took me to Gap City though. I didn't realize the NSX was that fast.
Well, mine is because of the turbo. But the funny story was, the first run, I was like, dang, I guess, man, that car is fast. Let's do it again.
He was in the wrong gear.
Yeah, I think I took off in 5th instead of like 4th. Because it was like 70 roll or whatever.
Yeah.
And it wasn't very long, but it was just long enough.
Yeah, I only did one. I was in 3rd, but I only did the one gear. And I probably should have been in 4th because I kind of had to short shift it at the end. But he had me. There was no, forget about it. He had me.
And that is a Q&A segment. I want to thank Billy Johnson for spending time. I love having that guy on the show. He's so smart, and he likes being on the show. So let me know, maybe I can get him back for the Q&A. The guy is so busy testing cars and writing blogs. Make sure you check him out. All his links, I'll put his links in the description, his articles, at least one of his articles. Also, thanks to Byron for stopping by the studio. You're always welcome. Everybody, if you're in Arizona, hit me up. I don't want to have to reach out to you. And come by. You got something on your mind? Come by. I told Byron, man, if I say anything you want to talk about, you want to follow up, or if there's somebody else out there when you're just doing your job that pisses you off, you want to get some shit off your chest, stop by the studio. We can talk it out. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to the podcast and go tell a friend about it. Then come back next week. Next week is a shorter show. I'm tired. This was a long weekend. It's late. You guys help me. We need to get this podcast in front of more people. I enjoy doing this, and I enjoy every single one of you. Help spread the word, please. Need to think right Honda out of Scottsdale, Arizona. Higher quality detail. Boosterbath.com, fullonline.com, tonguetrees.com, Cell Shop Wireless Services, The Credit Mix, and Patreon Business Supporter Cree Automotive out of Winter Garden, Florida. If you have any questions for the show, hardparkingpodcast@gmail.com. John Chu, I will help you out with your voicemail. I will get to it. Maybe here's what you can do. Become a Patreon and I'll do it. You become a Patreon, and I will do your voicemail message for you. How about that? You guys follow me on Instagram at JFinning. That's JHAEPFENNING, or J Travels, JHAE_travels. Join the Hard Parking Violations Facebook group. Facebook.com/HardParkingMedia. Follow me on YouTube. I finally dropped another video. Subscribe, tell a friend, help me get to 1,000 subs. The grind is real. I guess it would help if I put out, like a video a week instead of one every 6 weeks. I'm sorry, I'm trying. I am trying. But I can't grow without you telling the world how great this show is. So let's do this. Let's grow this thing together, and I'll talk to you all next week. I am tired. I am going to bed.
Shut up!
Hey, this is Levi Epps, hashtag Mr. Financial Freedom of the Credit Mix, here with a special offer for Hard Parking Podcast fans. If you've been living with less than perfect credit for having evictions, late payments, bankruptcies, doesn't matter what it is. If it's something that negatively impacts your credit score and you're not able to get approvals for certain things, or maybe you got to pay large deposits and high interest rates, we don't want that to be you anymore. We have a program that will legally get negative items off of your credit report and keep them off. And we have a special code for a free consultation to see if we can help you. Text HP Credit to 737-4CREDIT. That's HP Credit to 737-427-3348. Let's get you back on the road to financial freedom.